During this time, Pisces feels like they are standing in a very unusual moment of life. Not loud, not dramatic. Yet there is a clear sense that something is quietly changing. It does not arrive in a way that startles you or demands your attention all at once. It arrives like light slipping through a narrow crack at dawn, slow, gentle, but just enough to let you know the long night is almost over. You may not be able to name what it is yet. It could be a small personal win, something you achieved after a long stretch of silent effort. Or it could be the return of someone who once mattered deeply to you, someone you believed had permanently drifted out of your life. Whatever it is, the feeling is the same. A sense of relief. A sense of finally setting your heart down. No longer bracing, no longer guarding, no longer waiting for impact. What makes this moment special is this. The very situations that once kept you awake at night, that pulled your thoughts in endless circles, that made you doubt yourself, are beginning to turn in ways you never expected. Not because you controlled them, but because you stayed patient when quitting would have been easier. Because you stayed kind when bitterness had every reason to take over. Because you refused to let pain reshape you into someone you are not. Pisces experiences life through the heart more than through logic. You sense subtle shifts in a relationship, changes in someone's eyes, meaning in the silences others overlook. And because of that, you feel disappointment more deeply when things fall out of alignment. But what few people ever tell you is this. Every time you move through a difficult chapter, a new layer of light forms inside you, quieter, but stronger, less fragile. This phase brings a very different feeling, no longer waiting in anxiety, but being received. As if the universe is reminding you that none of your quiet efforts were ever wasted. The tears you hid, the moments you chose silence over resentment. All of it is being answered now, in its own way, in its own time. You may notice yourself breathing more deeply, no longer rushing to prove your worth, no longer chasing validation from anyone. And the moment you slow down like this, the right things finally have space to move toward you. Some Pisces are beginning to realize that happiness is not always a big moment. Sometimes it is waking up without heaviness in your chest. Sometimes it is knowing that whatever comes next, you are strong enough to face it. And in this bigger picture, the most valuable thing is not the final outcome. It is the path that brought you here. A path filled with emotion, with challenge, and with compassion. Because even when life tested you again and again, you chose love, you chose trust, and you chose to remain gentle with yourself. When you sit with your feelings in moments of quiet like this, you begin to see more clearly what truly matters. Not every open door is meant to be walked through, but the doors that open with sincerity and peace, those are the ones where trust can return. Not from blind hope, but from a deep understanding of your own worth. And from that stillness, a new current begins to form. Carrying choices, questions, and opportunities that ask you to listen more closely than ever before, not through fear, but through the awareness and maturity you have patiently built over time. And once you reach that place, Pisces begins to notice something very different. It is not that there are no paths to take. It is that too many crossroads are appearing at the same time. Each one carries its own invitation, its own vision, a familiar feeling that once made your heart respond. Some choices bring back a sense of safety, some awaken passion, and some speak directly to your deepest fear that if you do not take them right now, you will lose everything. But in that exact moment, maturity begins to speak. Not loudly, not urgently, it does not push. It simply whispers, very softly, that not every opportunity needs to be seized. Not everything that shines is meant to guide you forward. Some things look attractive because they touch the parts of you that once felt empty, not because they truly fit the person you are becoming. In love, more than one person may appear, or more than one possibility may be placed in front of you. Someone may feel familiar, like an old habit, easy to step back into, but just as easy to repeat the same cycles that once hurt you. Someone else may feel new, deep, and meaningful, yet require patience and trust in what is not fully defined yet. And it is also possible that the real question you are facing is not who to choose, but how you choose to love yourself moving forward. When it comes to direction in life, the thoughts begin to overlap more clearly. Do you stay on the familiar road because it feels stable, or turn toward a path that aligns more closely with who you truly are? Do you remain in the comfort zone you know well, or allow yourself to step into something that demands greater responsibility, greater commitment? These questions are not here to confuse you. They are here to see how deeply you understand yourself. And in work or personal projects, Pisces may feel pressure to decide quickly. Pressure from time, from other people's expectations, from the fear that slowing down means being left behind. But deep inside, there is a clear and steady voice reminding you that nothing lasting is ever built in a rush. Strong foundations take time. They require observation. They require listening. What matters most right now is not the final decision itself, but your willingness to pause. To pause long enough to feel which choice allows you to breathe more freely. Not because it is easy, but because it does not ask you to trade your inner peace. To pause long enough to ask yourself whether this path lets you be who you are, or whether it only supports a version of you designed to please someone else. There may be moments when you feel slower than others, but this slowness is not stagnation. It is discernment. It is the way you honor your own life by refusing to decide from panic. You have been through enough pain to understand that choices born from fear often lead back to familiar places of exhaustion. Pisces was not meant to live a rushed life. You were meant to live a life with depth, a life where each decision carries meaning, where each connection has space to breathe and to grow. And in this quiet observation, you begin to see more clearly what is worth holding on to and what needs to be released. Not because it is wrong, but because it no longer fits the person you are becoming. When you allow yourself to stay with these feelings long enough, without avoidance, without force, clarity arrives naturally. No noise, no drama, just a steady knowing that there are choices, fewer perhaps, but ones that will lead you to a more stable life, a deeper life, and a life that is honest with your own heart. And from that quiet certainty, memories begin to return, not loudly, not all at once, but like old waves brushing gently against the shore as the tide slowly turns. Pisces starts to remember the roads already traveled, the places that once felt like home, the people who made you believe that if you just tried a little harder, everything would eventually change. There were relationships that took far more energy than they gave, so much that you forgot what it felt like to rest in your own presence. And there were situations where every single day asked you to hold yourself together, to be stronger than you truly had the strength to be. You gave more than you had. You gave patience. You gave compassion. You even set aside your most personal dreams because you believed that love, or loyalty, or connection was worth the sacrifice. You hoped others would change. Not because they promised anything extraordinary, but because your heart saw potential in them. And because of that hope, you stayed longer than you should have, even when deep down, you knew you were slowly running empty. Those days were not always painful in obvious ways. Sometimes it was simply a lingering exhaustion. Sometimes it was no longer recognizing yourself in the mirror. Sometimes it was the growing silence where conversations used to be. But Pisces did not turn away from the truth forever. There came a very quiet moment when you realized that if you stayed, you would lose far more than what you were trying so hard to hold on to. Leaving that past behind was never easy. It was not a door slamming shut. It was a series of slow steps away, carrying both regret and hesitation. You questioned yourself. Were you being selfish? Were you giving up too soon? Could you endure just a little longer? And yet, alongside those questions, another truth slowly emerged. That love should never require you to keep shrinking yourself. That emotional safety is not a luxury meant to be paid for with exhaustion. What you carried with you after leaving was not only sadness, you carried growth. A kind of growth that did not harden you, but made you more aware, more awake. You began to understand that your value is not measured by how much you can endure, but by knowing what you deserve. You became more serious about invisible boundaries, about what you allow into your life. and what you are finally willing to release, even when your heart still trembles. And most importantly, you no longer see that past as a mistake. It became a mark that reminds you that you loved deeply, that you sacrificed sincerely, and that you had the courage to walk away when it was necessary. Those experiences shaped a different Pisces, stronger, clearer, less willing to trade inner peace for the sake of holding on to anything. When you look back from where you stand now, the past no longer pulls you downward. It feels like solid ground, pressed firm beneath your feet, strong enough for new steps. And from that ground, you begin to sense something important, that what is coming next will not ask you to lose yourself. It will ask you to honor the person you have become after everything you have lived through. That sense of appreciation shows clearly in the way you are present now, no longer rushing to prove yourself, no longer trying to become someone else just to be loved. Pisces steps into the present moment with a slower breath, a deeper breath, as if you have learned how to stay with your emotions without being afraid of being pulled under by them. And it is within that quiet space that a connection begins to form, not loud, not dramatic, but steady and strong. You may notice that this connection does not rely on grand promises. It reveals itself through small actions, through consistent presence, through the willingness of both people to face what was once avoided. There is no longer silence used to keep the peace, no longer ignoring issues just to make things appear fine. Instead, there are clear conversations, not to win, not to dominate, but to understand, to know that you are standing on the same side. Within this connection, you no longer feel the need to hold yourself together. You are not constantly reading between the lines. You are not sacrificing essential parts of who you are just to maintain a fragile sense of calm. Everything begins to move naturally, like two streams finally finding the same rhythm after a long period of collision. Disagreements still arise at times, but they are no longer threats. They become reminders that both of you feel safe enough to speak honestly, to adjust, and to grow together. Pisces begins to feel life becoming lighter in very subtle ways. You sleep more deeply. You smile more easily. The future no longer carries the same weight. In its place, a clearer picture begins to form of what the two of you can build together. Not distant fantasies, but long-term goals grounded in respect and shared movement forward. What feels most valuable in this phase is the sense of being supported. Not the kind of support that creates dependence, but the kind that lifts you toward a better version of yourself. You begin to understand that in the right connection, you do not need to shrink to fit into someone else's life. You are encouraged to expand, to grow, to imagine something larger for yourself. And the person beside you is not threatened by that growth. They see it as something to celebrate, something shared. The old difficulties that once weighed heavily on this connection do not disappear overnight, but they no longer hold power. They are set down, acknowledged, and slowly closed, like doors that no longer need to be opened. You do not forget what happened, but you also do not allow it to define what comes next. In this present space, Pisces learns that strength does not come from everything being perfect. It comes from knowing that whatever happens, you are no longer facing it alone. There is someone willing to search for solutions with you, to walk beside you through uneven ground, not out of obligation, but out of conscious choice. And when you sit with that feeling, a warmth begins to spread. Not temporary excitement, but lasting reassurance. You start to recognize that this is what your heart has been quietly searching for all along. A connection that allows you to be yourself, to rest within love, and to move forward with the trust that what is being built now has the depth to last. From that sense of safety, the light continues to expand. Not blinding, but gentle, guiding you forward, carrying deeply human thoughts, honest thoughts about how you meet worry, how you meet vulnerability, and how you finally allow the unspoken questions in your heart to be heard and slowly healed. From that gentle light, very small movements begin to stir inside you, not major events, but delicate emotional waves, just enough to make Pisces pause and quietly wonder. There are calm, Evenings when everything has settled and your mind begins to travel farther than it needs to. You think more, not because you lack faith, but because you have lost enough to understand that beautiful things can sometimes be fragile. At times, in the middle of an ordinary moment, you suddenly wonder whether the love you are receiving is truly as deep as it appears, whether this warmth will last, or if it is only a brief season before everything changes again. That worry is not loud, but it slips in quietly. It tightens your chest, as if you are standing before the open sea, afraid that the next wave might wash away everything you just managed to hold. The fear of things disappearing is a familiar one for Pisces. It comes from loving with your whole heart, without keeping a backup plan. And because you love that way, you fear that if it ever fades, you will once again have to gather yourself from the same familiar pieces. What you may not realize yet is that this phase has not arrived to take something from you again. It has arrived to adjust, to clarify, to bring light into the corners you have long kept hidden. Improvement begins to appear very gently, not as bold declarations, but as consistency in action. Someone staying when things are imperfect. Words spoken at the right moment, not to comfort, but to be honest. It may be an explanation you have waited for a long time. It may be an apology that does not erase the past, but finally acknowledges it. Or it may be a clear act of initiative that shows you that you are not the only one trying to protect this connection. Moments like these do not erase all worries at once, but they change the way you see them. You begin to understand that not every silence means someone is leaving. Not every pause signals an ending. Some spaces exist so two people can breathe, so they can understand each other more deeply, so the rhythm can be adjusted without anyone being left behind. Pisces slowly realizes that the greatest fears do not unfold the way your mind once imagined. What you worried about most does not come true, and when it does not, you begin to understand that safety does not only come from everything going smoothly. It comes from being seen, from being heard, from being valued, even when you are at your most vulnerable. The things that once made you uneasy begin to clear, not through promises, but through presence, not through rushed commitments, but through the quiet knowing that you no longer have to guess your place in someone else's life. A new clarity is forming, slow but steady, strong enough for trust without forcing yourself to hold it together. And through facing these worries, Pisces learns to be gentler with yourself. You no longer blame yourself for thinking too much, for feeling afraid. You understand that these emotions are simply the marks of a heart that has loved sincerely. When you allow them to exist without judgment, they begin to settle. They make space for a more mature kind of trust. A trust that is not blind. A trust built from what you see, what you feel, and what is being proven day by day. And as you begin to trust in this way, the future no longer feels like an empty, frightening unknown. It becomes an open space, slowly unfolding, where you can move forward with an open heart, while still holding the strength you spent so long learning to protect. And when all of those movements finally settle, a very simple truth begins to appear. Soft, quiet, yet impossible to deny. This connection is far stronger than you ever realized. It does not need to be loud to prove itself. It does not need to be displayed to be validated. It simply endures, like an underground current that continues to flow even when the surface of the water trembles. The only thing standing between you and lasting peace is not circumstance, not another person, but a question you must answer for yourself, whether you are willing to trust. Pisces feels everything deeply. You hear what is never said. You notice the smallest shifts in someone's eyes, in their voice, in the way they stay, or the way they leave. And because you feel so deeply, you often doubt your own heart. You have questioned whether your emotions are too fragile, too idealistic, too easily wounded. You learn to protect yourself with skepticism, with distance, even when your heart was already fully engaged, and yet your intuition has never betrayed you. It was only ignored during moments when trusting again felt like it might cost too much. There are moments when intuition speaks very clearly, not with excitement, not with urgency, but with a quiet sense of peace that cannot be easily explained. A feeling that here, you do not need to perform. You do not need to earn your place. You do not need to shrink yourself to fit into someone else's life. The message for you lives in that moment. When intuition speaks, do not turn away. Not because it always promises happiness, but because it always guides you closer to who you truly are. And do not close your heart out of fear of being hurt again. Each time you close the door out of fear, you do not only block pain, you also block the possibility of something beautiful reaching you. You deserve a stable kind of love. A love that does not leave you guessing every day. You deserve clear presence. Someone who does not make you question where you stand in their life. And above all, you deserve a relationship that never asks you to doubt your own worth. One that does not require you to become a different version of yourself just to be kept. When you allow yourself to trust in this more mature way, not blindly, but not closed off, you begin to understand that love is not a gamble. It is a conscious choice, a choice shaped by self-awareness, by the lessons you have lived through, by everything that has refined you into who you are today. And at the end of this journey, what matters most is not who you are walking beside. It is how gently you are walking with yourself. When you move forward with an open heart, without losing yourself, life begins to answer you with connections that are worthy. No rushing, no proving, only presence, only trust in your own value, and the quiet permission for happiness to enter your life naturally, honestly, the same way it always finds hearts that have learned how to love without forgetting how to love themselves.